You were listening.
Do I do it?
Oh,
or
wait,
do
you
you
do
do
it.
it?
You do it. Sorry.
You are listening to A Scary State, and this week we're covering Tennessee. So, Nora,
Yes, Lauren.
let's get scary.
Y'all, I apologize in advance because Lauren and I are a giggling wad of giggles this week.
A lot of giggles.
We've been catching up. Literally, she got here at 4:30. It's now 6 o'clock. And we've just been talking.
Just getting to recording.
Yeah. And
That's
we've
what
also had a
happens.
few glasses of wine.
It's been a week, y'all.
It has been a week.
We're recording on a Wednesday. It has only been Wednesday, and it has been a week. Do we have any updates?
Well, we are seeing a really awesome duo in a week.
Yes, we are. So my amazing husband got me tickets to go see And That's Why We Drink at their live tour. And he got them for me like last year, the year before, and it's been postponed 3 times. So now we're supposed to go see them when they come close to us.
Yeah.
And we're going together and we're going to see them, and we are super, super excited.
We cannot wait.
And I can't wait.
We are so pumped.
I saw them once before, and I went to the bathroom as Christine was coming out of the bathroom, and I got really, really starstruck, and all I could manage to say was hi. And then she said hi, and then she walked away, and I was like, oh my God, that was so embarrassing.
Yeah, Lauren was like, hey, you got any plans on this date? And I was like, no, what's up? And she said, you want to go see And That's What We Drink live? And I was like, yeah.
So we're making it a whole day. We're going to get food, and then Nora's spending the night afterwards. It's going to be really, I'm
We're
really
going to go
excited.
into work late the next day because we're old ladies.
Can't do the thing and wake up early anymore.
So yeah, we're pretty pumped.
Yeah, so we'll definitely talk about that next time with how amazing it was, and I have no doubt they're going to be amazing.
Yes.
That was actually the first podcast I ever listened to. Like, that got me into podcasts.
Yeah.
Oh, full circle.
Mine was My Favorite Murder. Hold on, sorry, there's a hair in my mouth. But yeah, that was my first.
Oh.
Yeah.
And then we bonded over a podcast, and now here we are.
I know, because you were like, because we listened to true crime podcasts years ago before it was like very big, before Morbid. Honestly, I think before Crime Junkie. This was like 2016, 2017. I remember standing in line to get into a bar in DC. We were in college and we started talking about true crime podcasts.
Aww.
And who would know that literally, not to get emotional, but who would know that years later we would have our own? Like, that's crazy.
It's wild.
It is very
It's
crazy.
wild.
Yeah.
Ugh.
But anywho,
Anyhow.
I guess we should talk about our state of the week.
Yes.
Yes, Tennessee. So Tennessee, nicknamed the Volunteer State, joined the Union on June 1st, 1796, and became the 16th state. It got its nickname during the War of 1812. Oh my God, you put what I always say. She put in parentheses, pop quiz. When did this war take place? Literally, that is right up my alley.
So I do the state facts, and we'll switch off reading it, and every now and then I don't know who's going to be reading it that week, so I just like type in things, and so if Nora's the one reading it, it makes me laugh, because I'm like, what did I put for this week?
Oh my gosh, that's funny. So many people volunteered to help with the war effort.
That's why it's called the Volunteer State.
Wow.
Yeah.
Tennessee got its name from the Cherokee village Tennessee, who had been allies with the English during the French and Indian War of the 1750s and 60s. Some weird laws. It is illegal to carry a skunk over state lines.
Have you ever been sprayed by a skunk?
My dog was sprayed by one, and it stunk up our basement. I'm not even kidding you, for like a month.
How'd you get rid of it?
It was horrible. We put tomato sauce.
You did do that?
Yeah,
Does that
we
work?
did that. It did not work.
Oh.
She smelled like tomato sauce and skunk.
Oh, gross.
And then I don't know what we did. I know that for a fact we went to school smelling like skunk, which going to school as a child is hard enough. But yeah.
Oh.
Good times. Have you?
I don't even think I've ever really seen one.
Knock on wood.
Yeah, knock on wood.
It's illegal to shoot any animal out of your car window except a whale. I'm not sure how you would get to a whale from your car.
In a landlocked state, that is Tennessee.
Yeah, good point. You are allowed to shoot a whale out of your car window.
Yeah.
All right.
I feel like that's a law because there's no whales that you're going to be able to shoot out of your car window.
We'll sound like we're a little bit lenient by putting something that will never happen.
Right.
Don't share your Netflix password because that is illegal in Tennessee.
I shared mine with my brother, and I ended up changing it recently. Like, not on any reason. I just changed it, and he messaged me. He goes, so I wanted to watch Netflix and I can't sign on. What's your password? I was like, you are such a little. And then one time I was watching it upstairs and my mom was watching it downstairs and my brother was at, like, I don't know, he was somewhere else. And he texts me and he goes, hey, are you still watching Netflix? I want to watch something. I was like, sir, I pay for this account. You do not pay for this.
Do you know one time my dad was furious because someone gave out the password to, I don't know who did it, but one of my sisters gave out the password to someone and one of their friends created their own Netflix account. And so it shows like all the icons.
Yep.
It's like me, my dad, my sister, and then like a random person. And he was like, who is this? And of course we thought it was like hilarious.
Oh, absolutely. I have a good one too. When Joe and I first started dating, he had the Netflix account. Now we switch off. I do Netflix, he does Hulu. Mm-hmm. And he didn't know it, but his ex still had his password. And so she would go onto the account and delete the joint account. Like, cause you can make profiles. So we made like Ellen J's profile. She would delete it every time she went on. So I told Joe, I was like, you need to change this password. So we ended up canceling it because I was the one who had Netflix. But I was like, are you freaking kidding me?
Oh my gosh, something similar like that happened with me and Ian.
What happened?
We bought tickets to a Wizards game because we're from the DC area, and the tickets that we bought were fraudulent. We bought them on like StubHub.
Oh no.
Yeah, so StubHub was like trying to contact us, but Ian had created that account with his ex. So it was his number on the account, but he didn't realize that it was her email.
Oh.
So instead of reach out to him like an adult, because she's getting blown up by StubHub, like, hey, we need to give you correct tickets. She didn't reach out to him. So we go to the game and we can't get in and we had to like go do other stuff instead.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
That's horrible.
Wild. Yeah. So that happened. So moral of the story, if you break up with someone, take them off all your dang accounts, boys.
Real quick, I have a fun story about that. When my ex and I broke up, he was on my Netflix account and I changed the Netflix password. And he goes, the worst part of a breakup is when they change the Netflix password.
Oh my goodness.
He like posted that on like Twitter or something. And I was like, are you kidding, sir?
That's like a fourth grader perspective.
Oh, she kicked me off Netflix because we broke up. Like, oh my God. We are moving on.
Anywho. In Tennessee, you're not allowed to drive while you're asleep.
Good.
So what if you have a Tesla and you want to take a nap?
That's
It's
legal.
not allowed.
Not allowed?
Graceland, home of Elvis Presley, is the third most visited house in the country. Excuse me, in the country, right behind the White House and the Biltmore Estate. People who love salt and pepper shakers will want to visit Gatlinburg. It is home to the Salt and Pepper Shaker Museum and Smoky Mountain Spices. It has over 20,000 different types of salt and pepper shakers. Some look like frogs, musical notes, even the Beatles. And side note, Lauren got me and some other friends the cutest salt and pepper shakers for Christmas this year, and they are the shape of dumplings.
Yeah,
and
little soup dumplings. They're
cute.
adorable.
They're so adorable.
And they're
on
right
my
Nora's
table.
I know. I saw them when I came in. I was like, oh.
So Mountain Dew, cotton candy, and moon pies were all invented in Tennessee.
The Bell Witch Cave is located in Tennessee. Mm-hmm. And when my brother was in the military, we would drive through Tennessee. And so one day I was like, okay, Mom, we're going to go look at the Bell Witch Cave. Like, this is going to be awesome. And then the more I thought about it, the more scared I got, because another great podcast, Two Girls, One Ghost, covered the Bell Witch Cave. Mm-hmm. And one of the parts of the story is if you take anything from there, you could get cursed. And like anything, as in if a pebble gets stuck in your shoe and you take that pebble with you, you could get cursed by her. So I looked at my mom. I was like, I don't really want to go anymore. And she was like, I don't either. So we never went to the Bell Witch Cave.
That's smart.
I was too scared. I was like, I don't want to risk getting cursed by anything.
Yeah.
So
that's not worth it.
No.
It's like,
and I can't remember if you have to or not, but like one of the places you go to, you have to sign a waiver. And I was like, we'll drive by the sign that tells us that's where you would go, and we're just going to keep going.
We're just going to book it.
We're going to finish this.
Well, I'm glad you didn't, because you're here today.
Yes, I am.
Jack Daniels, who is famous for his Tennessee whiskey, died of a blood infection. He got this infection after getting mad and kicking a safe. He hurt his toe, which led to the infection that killed him. Wow.
Men's anger, I'm telling you.
Right. I'm surprised he didn't just put some whiskey on it and kill the infection. Anyways, there's this bar called Patrick's Bar and Grill, but the Georgia-Tennessee state line cuts right through the restaurant. The Georgia side is a dry county, so alcohol can only be served on the Tennessee side.
That's actually really cool.
That is so awesome.
That's
but
really
I wonder
cool.
how many, like, because I don't know, people are not always the brightest, so I bet people will just walk anywhere in the
Probably.
restaurant, but it's still cool.
Yeah,
I like
that is really cool.
Tennessee has one known serial killer and one unknown serial killer.
Oh,
Very nice.
very nice.
So, what are you telling us?
So I wanted to do something spooky because I felt like I haven't done like an actual haunted location in a while.
Yeah.
So that's what I did.
Wow.
So what I'm going to talk about today is known as one of, if not the most haunted place in Tennessee. So it seems literally every place you cover is going to be the most haunted place in the state.
Yeah.
But this is one of them. So located
it's like The Bachelor when they're like the most dramatic season ever.
Oh,
and it's like,
always.
okay.
Yep. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So this place, the Tennessee State Prison, is located in Nashville. So the prison under this name was operational from 1898 to 1992, so over 100 years, but was finally closed due to overcrowding concerns, as it always seems. Mm-hmm. But the building was first known as the Tennessee State Penitentiary and opened on January 1st, 1831. At this time, it was actually known for the humane way that it treated inmates, which we all know is a lie. Mm-hmm. It was also considered to be a modern prison for the time. It contained 200 cells, a residence space for the warden, and a hospital. The penitentiary was designed and modeled after the Auburn Penitentiary, which is located in New York, and was the first prison of its kind in Tennessee and in the South overall. But because it was modeled after Auburn Penitentiary, the conditions and practices for the inmates soon became the same. One of the conditions was, quote, during the day, the prisoners, with downcast eyes, labored silently together in workshops, while at night they slept alone in separate cells. Under no circumstances could they communicate with one another, and only when necessity demanded could they receive letters or calls from relatives and friends.
So they expect these people to then go back, once they've served their time, go back into society and be able to function and like be part of society when they're being treated like that.
Yeah, and we know now you can't go without talking to people. Like humans have to talk to people.
It's one of the 5, you know how there's like the pyramid of needs in
Oh,
psychology?
yeah.
One of them is like, isn't it like love or something, like communication?
Probably like human
something
contact of some sort.
Yeah.
That's why solitary confinement is illegal. Like you can only do it for a certain amount of days. Like you can't do it, I think, for more than 30 days because the human mind can't handle being alone for that long, which is actually very interesting.
Yeah.
So both men and women were housed here at first, the first male being admitted in 1831 when it first opened, and the first female being admitted in 1840. In 1836, it was used as a military prison after being taken over by the Union Army. This is when things started to get really bad at the prison. So once the Union took control, the population in the prison tripled and conditions declined, obviously. The prisoners were actually leased to the federal government by the occupation government of Tennessee to help them repay their debts. So pretty much, they would work to pay for their stay at the prison.
Wow.
So the stay that they had no say in. So they're paying to be at this place that they're detained at.
That's so backwards.
I know. So one wild fact, one of the prisoners at the time was named Mark Cockrell. He was a Confederate sympathizer. His property, which was located in West Nashville, was actually purchased for the construction of a new prison. So he's in prison and his property is being used for a new prison. Wow. So that really sucks.
Yeah.
After the Civil War, okay, so this part really sucks. After the Civil War, the number of Black inmates increased exponentially. Before the Civil War, Black inmates made up 5% of the population of Tennessee prisons. After the Civil War, that percentage increased to a staggering 62% in 1869.
Oh my gosh.
But the proportion of Black women was even worse. In 1868, all female prisoners in Tennessee were African American.
All
of them. Yeah.
Wow.
So as you can imagine, the conditions in this prison were completely inhumane. So it wasn't that like perfectly humane one it said it was. So the prisons at the time pretty much required prisoners to earn their stay, like I said, and the inmates did this by performing physical labor. Inmates would work up to 16 hours a day. Then they would receive a small ration of food and go to sleep in a hot, unair-conditioned or unheated, unventilated sleeping area. And this prison labor became so profitable that the prison actually became a revenue-generating system. So companies started to bring their work into the prison as they were essentially getting free labor. So it's just horrible.
It's like slavery.
Yeah.
That's horrible.
Mm-hmm. So up until 1892, men and women were housed together, which seems really unsafe.
Yeah.
But overcrowding soon became too much, and a women's wing was opened, which now had men and women being housed separately. But a new prison was needed, and soon a new one was being designed. It was designed with a sort of fortress-like structure. The second Tennessee prison would contain many more cells, 800 of them. These microcells, as they were called, were meant to hold only one inmate. There was also going to be an admin building and other smaller offices, a warehouse, and a factory, so sounds kind of nice. Well, for a prison.
Yeah.
This new prison was to be surrounded by walls that were 20 feet high, or 6.15 meters, 3 feet thick, 1 meter. There would also be an operational farm outside of the walls. And there was also a women's wing here as well. So one smart thing, though, they planned to keep certain prisoners separate, which is actually really cool. So they wanted to keep the younger offenders isolated and away from the older, hardened criminals, which honestly I think is a great idea. Because sometimes when you have a newer criminal going into jail, they just learn how to be a better criminal. They don't get reformed. They just learn how to be better at the things that they're doing.
Right.
So this new prison was built by Enoch Guy Elliott, who soon was made chief warden of the old prison. But not surprisingly, Elliott used mostly prison labor to build a new prison. So construction of the new prison was finally completed in 1898, and on February 12th, they admitted 1,403 prisoners for a prison that only had 800 cells. So not surprisingly, the prison was immediately overcrowded, and that overcrowding persisted. The original Tennessee State Penitentiary was demolished that same year. But not all was peachy in this new prison. In 1902, 72 prisoners managed to blow out one of the wings in the prison. This blast killed one inmate and allowed 2 others to escape. Those 2 were never recaptured.
Oh, wow.
That same year, another group of inmates gained control of the segregated white wing and held it pretty much hostage for 18 hours before finally surrendering. Then, in 1907, another group of prisoners somehow got control of a switch engine, which is like a train, and drove it through the prison gates. Then in 1938, a mass escape was planned, but I don't know the results of this. It literally just said it was planned, and that was about it. Fires were common. One even destroyed the main dining room. And between 1975 and 1985, many riots occurred within the prison walls. So then in 1989, the Riverbend Maximum Security Institution at Nashville was opened by the Tennessee Department of Correction, and the second Tennessee State Penitentiary finally closed its doors in June of 1992. Grubbs v. Bradley was a class action lawsuit that took place in 1983. The federal court issued an injunction that prohibited the Tennessee Department of Correction from ever housing inmates in the Tennessee State Prison ever again. So that's good.
Yeah.
But that hasn't stopped the old prison from being used as the location for many films. Some popular ones that filmed at this prison were Last Dance, The Green Mile, and Walk the Line. Eric Church also filmed 2 music videos here.
Oh.
I actually loved Walk the Line. It's about Johnny Cash.
Yeah.
I don't know why, but I watched that movie and I loved it.
Oh my gosh, Ian was watching that the other day.
It's so good.
Yeah,
I
watched
literally
little pieces of it.
watched it by myself at home one day.
Oh my gosh.
This was a while ago. My dad came down. He's like, "What is this?" And I was like, "Johnny Cash." So he watched it with me.
Nice.
And time has done nothing to help this building. The metal bars inside are rusting, the concrete is crumbling, and the electric chair, named Old Sparky, that executed so many is deteriorating away in a cell, all by itself. Also, a notable criminal who was housed here was James Earl Ray, the man who was accused of killing Martin Luther King.
Oh my gosh.
So on to the hauntings. Ooh. This building has many do not enter and no trespassing signs, but we all know that does little to deter someone who wants to get in and explore. The signs are there to protect others as this building is falling apart and literally crumbling. It is no longer structurally sound. It has peeling paint, dust, and chipped paint-covered floors. The metal bars are rusted, not to mention the entire building is riddled with asbestos.
Good thing Eric Church is filming music videos in that asbestos-filled area.
Hopefully this all happened before.
I know.
The conditions in this building got even worse and more unsafe after a tornado hit on March 3rd, 2020. Day after my birthday.
Whoa.
The criminals and killers who called this place home were never able to leave. Some died due to disease and overcrowding. Others were put to death by Old Sparky, and sadly, others tried to take their own lives. But this still doesn't free some of the souls and spirits that are now trapped here. And those people who didn't listen to the signs and made their way into the prison have reported hearing some strange noises. Some noises have been reported as sounding like people clanging on the bars of their cell, while others have actually heard what sounds like cell doors being opened and closed. People have also reported hearing a screaming coming from somewhere in the jail. The person who reported the scream followed it, thinking that it was someone playing a joke on them, only to realize that they and their friends were the only ones inside. It is said these screams are from those who were executed by the electric chair, reliving their final moments over and over.
Oh my gosh.
Phantom footsteps are also a very common thing that people have reported hearing. The footsteps usually sound like they're directly behind you, but when they look, no one is there. So unfortunately, these are the only mentions of anything spooky happening in this prison, as it is close to the public, unsafe, and sometimes patrolled by the police to further keep people away. But my research led me to another prison called the Brushy Mountain State Penitentiary, so I'm also going to talk about that one. So the Brushy Mountain State Penitentiary is located in Petros, Tennessee. The prison was designed in an L shape, though one source said that it was designed in an upside-down cross shape as a way to show the inmates that they weren't important and that they weren't enough to save.
Oh.
How horrible!
Oh my gosh.
And I only found that in one source, so, So the front part of the prison was 4 floors high, with the wing being 3 floors. The inside was divided into 5 sleeping wards, each of which could accommodate 120 men, which meant that Brushy Mountain had a capacity of 600 inmates. Each ward had 2 stoves and an oil lamp to light the rooms. The facility also had a hospital that could hold about 50 men. Opening in 1896, the prison operated as normal until it was closed in 2009, so very recently.
Yeah.
In 2008, it was considered to be the oldest operating prison in Tennessee. In the 113 years that the prison was open, it held up to 584 inmates during its prime. And like the other prison we talked about, the convicts here were forced to do the manual labor. They built railroad spurts, worked in the coal mines near the prison, operating ovens, and farmed. The convict leasing, as it was called, lasted until January 1st, 1896, and those 210 convicts who had been leased to work around the area and to build the penitentiary were then held at the Brushy Mountain State Penitentiary and became the first inmates. So they literally built it and then had to go there. By the end of the year, there were about 466 inmates. In 1900, electric lighting was added as well as laundry equipment and cooking ovens. Then in 1901, the 3rd floor of the wing was renovated, which allowed more space for more inmates. Another building was added to the grounds, and another was added that became a combination church, lodge, and school.
Well, that's good.
Yeah.
Some positive.
In 1906, the commissary was built, and then in 1914, a new school followed. So things seemed good and fine, and they were, until 1931, when the conditions at Brushy Mountain were reported to be, quote, conditions which prevailed in the Siberian prisons under the old Russian regime.
Oh my
So that's
goodness.
that's how the conditions at the prison were. So
That
not
does
very
not sound
good.
like warm and fuzzy.
No, not at all. It sounds cold and sad.
Yes.
So after more renovations, the building was equipped to hold 600 inmates, but the population of the prison was double that at 1,200 inmates.
Seems like a theme.
Right? In 1972, the prison temporarily closed after the prison guards went on strike over unsafe working conditions, but it reopened again only 4 years later in 1976. The prison was the only unionized prison in the state, which meant that they worked with state legislators to try and improve the conditions of the prison for both inmates and guards, but all of those efforts did nothing and conditions never got better. From here, Brushy Mountain served as a maximum security prison. It was also a classification facility, meaning that all prisoners in Tennessee had to go through Brushy Mountain to determine what level of security they needed and where they should be incarcerated based on that. So pretty much, this prison in particular held the worst of the worst, and the violence in this prison was horrible. It was so bad that at one point, the prison was averaging 1 murder a week.
Oh.
Yeah. And murders by inmates weren't the only cause of death here. Over 1,000 executions took place here, all by electrocution. Suicides were also commonplace here. Many of those were recorded, and these individuals were buried in the prison cemetery. Accidental deaths were also a thing. So like I mentioned earlier, the inmates would work on the property, and the property contained coal mines. So many inmates lost their lives in accidents that occurred in these mines. Many also died from diseases and sicknesses because, probably not surprising to guess, the health of the inmates was not a top priority to the guards. Mixed with the overcrowding, I can only imagine what the prison was like.
Diseases, everything.
Yeah. So it's obvious to see and to guess that conditions here were horrible, which led to many escape attempts, and very few of them were actually successful. One such attempt was done by James Slagle. He had been sentenced to Brushy Mountain on kidnapping and murder charges. He packed himself into a box that was labeled 153 pounds of roast beef. That box was put on a flatbed truck and departed the prison. He didn't get far, though, and was recaptured shortly after.
No.
I know. So this prison also claims to have housed James Earl Ray, the one who assassinated Martin Luther King. But I believe this one a little bit more because there's a lot more information about him. But he was sentenced to 99 years, but ended up dying in 1998 in a hospital. On June 10th, 1977, Ray tried to escape. He and 6 other inmates attempted to escape by climbing over a fence on the property. So he was a free man for about 58 hours.
Wow.
He was found 8.5 miles or 13.6 kilometers from the prison on June 13th. He was hiding under a pile of leaves and was only found after a prison guard literally stepped on him during the search. Another notable inmate was Brian Looper. In 2000, he was convicted for the murder of Tommy Burks, the state senator of Tennessee. Burks was assassinated by Looper in 1998, less than a month before his likely re-election. Looper was actually running against Burks in the election. He received a life sentence and died in prison on June 26, 2013. George Hyatt was also imprisoned at Brushy Mountain. Neither of these men I had ever heard of, though. He was involved in the 2005 Kingstown courthouse shooting, which was the fatal shooting of a Tennessee Department of Corrections transport officer and wounding of another in Kingstown, Tennessee. On August 9th, 2005, George Hyatt was in court for a robbery charge, which he was pleading guilty to. Right after he pled guilty, his wife, Jennifer Hyatt, pulled out a gun and started shooting. Jennifer was granted a life sentence without the possibility of parole. Then, on March 9th, 2009, George Hyatt pleaded guilty to first-degree murder of correctional officer Wayne Cotton Morgan in the 2005 shooting, attempted first-degree murder in the wounding of correctional officer Larry Porky Harris, and felony escape. He was sentenced to life in prison as part of a plea bargain to avoid the death penalty. So there are also a few notable fictional characters who have stayed here as well. So in Silence of the Lambs, Dr. Hannibal Lecter makes a deal where, if he provides information about serial killer Buffalo Bill, he will be transferred to Brushy Mountain. But after events, he never arrives to that prison. So if you haven't seen the movie, please go watch it.
Yeah, it's good.
But I don't want to give anything away to people who are very far behind and haven't seen it yet. Singer John Hiatus wrote a song in 1988 called Tennessee Plates. Part of the lyrics go, quote, "This ain't no hotel I'm writing you from. No, it's the Tennessee prison up in Bushy Mountain. Yours sincerely, doing 5 to 8, just stomping out my time making Tennessee plates."
Wow.
And in the 1979 novel Sutri, written by Cormac McCarthy, the main character's friend, Jean Harrogate, is sentenced to 3 years at the prison after being caught burglarizing a store. So it's a pretty, well-known place.
Yeah.
In 2018, Bushy Mountain reopened for tours, events, and concerts. It also houses the distillery that produces moonshine, vodka, whiskey, and liquors.
Wow.
So the sign as you enter welcomes you to the historic Brushy Mountain State Prison. It says, "Brushy Mountain State Prison first opened its wooden doors in 1896, built by the hands of the original 210 inmates. Replaced with stone in 1935, it was Tennessee's only maximum security prison for 113 years, housing the state's most hardened criminals. Serving an average 200-year prison term in the early days, the worst of the worst walked through these doors knowing one thing: they would never be walking out. The stone-cold fortress bears witness to notorious crimes and more than a few nightmarish deaths of some 278,255 doomed souls who once entered its steel gates.
My gosh.
Welcome to Brushy. You've reached the end of the line." So a cool side note, their moonshine brand is called End of the Line Moonshine.
I can see why.
Yeah. So, of course, there are hauntings here.
Of course.
So another sign located at the entrance of this prison says, "Warning, enter at your own risk. There are dangerous conditions ahead, including but not limited to indigenous snakes, uneven surfaces, and possible paranormal activity.
And no.
Many feel this prison is haunted and home to many spirits, both ghostly and alcohol-wise." But with as much death, hatred, and brutality that this prison saw, it is not surprising to see how the prison may be and probably is haunted. And unlike Tennessee State Penitentiary, this prison allows tours and ghost hunting experiences.
Ooh.
So for only $1,500, groups of 12 people can explore and ghost hunt in the prison overnight.
You had me at overnight.
Which honestly, if you get 12 people, it's only like $125 per person.
Or you could sleep in a nice
hotel. So it's
hotel.
like not that bad. So I got on YouTube and wanted to watch videos of people going here to explore or to ghost hunt, which is how I found a channel called Oh My Gosh TV, like oh my gosh.
Yeah.
It's so funny. So he decided to go here and check it out. But the annoying thing with his videos, like they're good. But first off, they don't bring any equipment, like no K2s, nothing. He says that if a place is haunted, you'll know it's haunted without any of the equipment. But also throughout the movie, he would like hear something, then he would point his camera down a dark hall. But the light on his camera wouldn't reach the end of the hall, so you're looking at a dark hall. And then he would be talking, then all of a sudden stop. And then he'd be like, oh, "Did you hear that?" And then he'd go back to being like, "Yeah, about this person." So it was just, I don't know.
Oh my gosh.
So he's like talking and then he stops in the middle of his sentence and swings his camera and then focuses on a spot for a few seconds, then goes back to talking.
That's like what I do when I'm trying to mess with Ellie. I'll be like, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
It's not nice.
It was just kind of an annoying way to watch a video, but nonetheless, he had good information and good stuff in his video. So a lot of the things he talked about, I was able to like verify through research. So he did have a lot of factual stuff. So they started in the courtyard and there is a story he told while in the courtyard area. The story of Jack Jett. So Jet was a little person, which is the political correct term now. Jeff was a snitch, though, and had been snitching on some of the inmates, mainly for the inmates having things they shouldn't. Well, one of the inmates found out. Jet was later on the phone with his mom when one of the inmates came up behind him and stabbed him in the neck multiple times, killing him. So the crew went to the area where the phones were to see if they could pick up anything from Jet, but they found nothing. Then the crew decides to split up and continue their investigation alone. Don't ever do this.
Yeah.
Like, don't ever split up.
Why would you ever do it?
So the main guy, who I'm going to assume is Omar, they never introduce themselves, but it's his channel, goes off to investigate the gym by himself. So as he's in the gym and panning around to show what it looks like, to his left, we hear a really loud bang. So Omar,
Oh boy.
Yeah, so Omar pans his camera over to where the sound came from, and nothing was there.
Oh.
So inside the prison, you can walk around and tour. There's an exhibit of the weapons that have been made in the prison. So there's like different knives and a legit functioning gun that they have made out of things. Isn't that wild?
Yeah.
That's terrifying.
Yeah.
So while Omar was exploring a wing with cells, we can hear footsteps coming from the end of a dark hallway. The cafeteria is said to be one of the most haunted and active spots in the whole building. Other investigators have caught a shadow figure in this room. Also, the feeling of being watched is strong in the room as well. When Omar was walking through the cafeteria, apparently alone, he heard a loud noise and turned to look just in time to see 2 metal chairs being moved across the cafeteria by something unseen. So he catches it on his camera.
Yeah.
He goes up to the chair and looks at it and asks whatever it was to move the chair again. Nothing happens, so he's about to turn away, and another chair in the frame moves. So honestly, it was kind of startling. Like, I was kind of shocked. But it could be, the skeptic in me, it could be a string tied to the chair that is outside of the thing, because in the way that it moved, it was pulled by one, like, leg. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But, you know.
Like it was attached to something.
It could be, but it was very cool.
Yeah.
So next, Omar makes his way to the auditorium. The auditorium is home to an entity known as the Creeper. His story goes that he had his throat cut. He would crawl on his hands and knees, so they ended up putting him in a padded room where he ended up dying. People have reported being in the auditorium and seeing the Creeper crawling on all fours. Absolutely no thank you. Like, oh, that's my no.
Okay, if I knew that going in, I would never split up.
No,
Ever.
I wouldn't. No. So while in the auditorium, he hears a creak, and at that time, there is some white mist that floats over the top of the screen, but he doesn't comment on it, which led me to believe that he didn't know about the mist, which is actually pretty cool.
Yeah.
So there's mist that he caught that he didn't comment on. So it was very cool.
Yeah.
So Omar mentioned the Magnificent Seven, who was a gang that was detained in the prison. On February 8th, 1982, a hostage situation occurred. It was one that was fueled purely by racism and hate. One of the inmates, part of this white gang, had smuggled a gun into the prison. The gang then sawed through their jail cell bars and were able to take 4 guards hostage. They made their way upstairs to C block, to where the black inmates were being held, and started shooting each person straight down the line. During this horrible situation, 2 black inmates had been killed. The Magnificent Seven then quietly surrendered to the guards that they had taken hostage. So the 2 men who were killed were named James Nichols and James Mitchell. So one of the men killed, like I said, was named James. We aren't sure which James, but James was known to be a smoker. So it's said that if you leave a cigarette on the bars of his cell, you can see it being puffed. So Omar took a cigarette, lit it, and laid it on the horizontal bar in front of James's cell. He turned off his camera light so that the cigarette embers could be focused on, and legit, it lit up like someone was taking a puff.
Oh my gosh.
It was so cool.
I want to see that.
I'll show you. It was actually really, really cool. So Omar immediately turned the camera light back on, and from what I could see, no one was in the cell. So it was really wild. Another group on YouTube called Exploration Unknown also did an investigation and did the cigarette thing as well. So they also lit one, turned their lights off, and it happened again. So it's just very cool.
Yeah.
So let's talk about some of the other spirits in this prison.
Okay.
So I talked about Jack Jet and the Magnificent Seven, both of which I was able to verify through research. So this prison was an all-males prison, but in the courtyard, there's a very active female spirit who goes by the name of Bonnie. She is known to interact with ghost hunters who want to talk to her. Jamie Brock, one of the paranormal guides here, believes that Bonnie is more connected to the land that the prison is on, not so much the prison itself. Another haunted location that I mentioned earlier was the cafeteria. Here is a spirit that is referred to as Waterhead. So Waterhead is thought to be the spirit of an inmate who was killed while he was working in the cafeteria. It is believed that nearly his entire arm was cut off. The gym is also known to have some weird stuff going on. Poltergeist activity has been reported, as well as strange colored lights being seen. Shadow figures are also seen on the steps that lead to the doorway of the gym. And onto the laundry room.
Oh boy.
In this room, people have reported being touched and seeing apparitions.
Oh no.
It is said that a ghost named Charlie hangs out in this area. And then cell 28. This is the cell that James Earl Ray spent time in. Though he did not die in this prison, he was sent to the hospital, like I said. People have claimed to see his spirit standing around. Others say they have actually encountered him. And at the check-in area, people have reported feeling like someone is running out at them.
Oh, gosh.
I really hate how that sounds because I can just picture, like, you know that feeling of something running at you and never hitting
Trying
you?
to escape and someone's behind you running. Oh, my gosh.
I hate it.
Yeah.
So it is believed that this was most likely residual in nature, as this check-in area was often used as protective custody. So it was mainly for those inmates accused of child molestation and those who ratted out their inmates, both populations of criminals who would be unsafe in general population. But I believe in jailhouse justice. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
So in D Block, this is where another entity named Leroy likes to hang out. So he tends to hang out in the death row area and haunts the death row building. So his story. Leroy was a bully and he was a big dude. One day he was working out in the area near death row and someone came up to him and stabbed him. People have reported negative feelings here. People have also reported hearing growls and groaning and seeing shadow people and apparitions. One thing about Leroy is that he is known to not just stay around the death row area. He is known to follow ghost hunting groups around the prison, trying to show them that he is there.
That's actually kind of awesome.
I hate that. So a group called the Ghost Research Society visited Brushy Mountain in June 2020 and did some investigating. One woman from the group named Barbara did an EVP session in one of the cells. As they were conducting the session, they saw a cell door close by itself. Something they weren't able to explain. Another EVP was recorded in front of James Earl Ray's cell. At one point, another investigator named Kathy asked, "Did you hear a noise back there? Did anyone hear that?" And an EVP voice is heard answering, "It's me." Another guy in the group named Dave picked up a few words outside of James Earl Ray's cell during a Phasma box session. So I tried to look up what this was and give like a good definition of what it was, but I couldn't find what it is. So what I surmised is I think it's just pretty much a spirit box where it just picks up words as it hears them without going through the radio stations. It just throws out words. So the investigator Dave picked up the words, quote, "I got shot," and quote, "a murderer" from this box. So there are a majority of spirits who still call Brushy Mountain State Penitentiary home, and I would say it is definitely haunted. And I was definitely able to find more haunting information about Brushy Mountain because it's actually open to the public, so people can go investigate and continue to like build that, evidence.
That's cool.
So I think it's safe to say that Brushy Mountain is a pretty haunted prison located in Tennessee. If you are into the paranormal and spooky things, this may be a great place for you to go investigate. Just go to the Penitentiary's website and you can fill out a form to try to book a spot to investigate with your group. And if you decide to go, please tell us what happened.
Yes.
And make sure to report back with all the things you've experienced.
Honestly, I would go there.
I think I would too.
I wouldn't spend the night, but I would go there.
Well, it's not like you don't like sleep there. You just kind of investigate until early in the morning.
Yeah.
Like when we would investigate places when I was a ghost hunter, we would go to the places and we would stay until like 3 or 4 in the morning. And then we would either drive home or go sleep at like someone's house. So, $125 if we have 12 friends.
Oh, wow, what a deal.
So what are you talking about, Nora?
Okay, so
You say as you put your glasses on and flip your
literally
hair.
take a sip of wine. No. So this story was insane to research because like literally I would research and then I would find something else that was insane that I had to add to it. And it was just like a whirlwind period of like 6 days that all of this just crap happened. Well, DoorDash gave our order, or no, the restaurant gave our order to the wrong person, which is interesting because I don't think there's a lot of Noras out there. But
Yeah. What the heck?
so
You need to make your name like Shalala Banana Hammock. I don't know.
I know, banana hammock. I love it.
Well, it's like what Phoebe Buffet would do was like Regina Phalange Banana Hammock.
I love it.
So we ordered DoorDash, and the place we ordered, I guess someone picked it up and took our order. So our DoorDash person went, and our order wasn't there. So we had to cancel the order, reorder. It's been a thing.
Yeah, but we have it reordered, and the guy knows because I called him. So we shall see.
I hope he doesn't spit in our food.
I know. I hope not. I wasn't rude. I was just a
No,
little
you
like,
weren't.
give
You
it to the
weren't.
right person, please.
There should be like a password.
Yeah.
Like, what's the password?
Banana hammock.
Banana hammock.
Okay, so it was approximately 9:15 p.m. on November 16th, 1999, when a young woman named Jessie Cochran had just returned home from an exercise class. Jessie lived in Hardman County, Tennessee, in a home located on a 175-acre wooded lot right by the Mississippi border. So this story is going to take place a little bit in Mississippi.
No.
I know. But literally, it took place so close to Mississippi, but it was technically Tennessee, but then some stuff happened in Mississippi. So you know what? I just went with it because we're talking about Memphis and like Tennessee for some of it. So it counts.
It counts.
Yeah.
I understood the assignment.
I know. Jesse actually said that she lived only 1.5 miles from the Mississippi border if you were to walk right through the woods. But if you were to like take roads, it was several miles. But you know how land and all that. Yeah. So
it's like as the crow flies.
Exactly.
It's like one of those things.
Yeah, exactly.
As the flow cries.
Just as Jessie got out of her car, she noticed that there was a man inside her house. She instantly froze and started walking back towards her car, but it was too late. The intruder saw her. He ran out the back door, calling her name, and she instantly recognized the man's voice. It was probably the last person you want to hear calling your name from your own house.
Yeah.
It was a guy. She recognized the voice as a guy named Leonard Young. And you're probably wondering, who's Leonard Young?
I am.
Well, Leonard Young was Jessie's ex-boyfriend.
We had a lot of ex talk today.
I know, a lot of it. She and Leonard had met at the end of 1990, right around Christmas time. The two were romantically involved and dated on and off until the early part of 1993. In 1992, so the year before they officially called it quits, Jessie had moved to Hardin County, Tennessee, into the home that Leonard was now running out of.
Good.
Yeah. Leonard told her that he was not going to hurt her and just wanted to speak with her. As they walked back towards the house, Jessie saw that Leonard was carrying a sawed-off shotgun beside his leg. Not the most comforting thing to see on your ex-boyfriend who's just ran out of your house.
No.
Now, this part is weird and kind of hard to understand, but for the next 45 minutes, Jessie and Leonard discussed, things like their families. Mm-hmm. My thought reading this was like she was probably freaked out and just trying to make small talk, trying to like calm down the situation.
100%.
Which I would do that. Yeah.
Yes. Because if you do anything drastic, it could like set them off.
Yeah, and she can see clearly that he's armed, so she's probably like, oh my gosh.
Oh,
like,
100%.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So Leonard then told Jessie that he had entered her house through the unlocked kitchen door, but she knew in the back of her mind that door had been locked.
Yeah.
She's not, she lives alone. She's not one to just keep the door unlocked.
Yeah.
So finally, Leonard stood to leave and thanked Jessie for everything that she, quote, had done for him and asked her not to call the law.
And this is what, 6 years after they broke up?
Yeah. They broke up in 93, 6 years later.
Yeah.
But Leonard had other motives for breaking into Jessie's house other than small talk and just catching up.
I had a feeling.
Yeah. Moments after Leonard left, she discovered that her keys were missing. She then looked out her window and saw the taillights of her red Mercedes, which were being backed out of the garage.
No.
Yes, he had stolen her car. She did end up contacting the law that day because she had called the sheriff's department and reported it stolen. Yeah. And luckily, it could have been a lot worse for her.
Oh,
but
yeah.
Imagine going through that and then seeing your ex drive off with your car. You're not going to be thrilled.
Really suck.
Once police were called, it was discovered that Leonard had entered Jessie's home by breaking a bedroom window. Mm-hmm. Jessie was so freaked out that she left her house that night to stay with her stepdaughter and did not return home until almost a month later on December 11th.
I literally don't blame her at all.
Yeah, I could never.
No.
Especially not knowing where he is or what's going on.
And knowing how easily he got into your house.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Especially, I'm not 100% sure she lived alone, but I'm pretty sure she did, and that would not be,
Oh, regardless, yeah.
So her Mercedes was recovered in Ashland, Mississippi, which was 23 miles from her home on a 500-acre property. A storage building on the property housed trucks, tractors, and several boats. One of the vehicles inside the building, a 1989 Ford Bronco, belonged to one of the family members who owned that big property. Mm-hmm. Other than the man who owned the property and his father, only the caretaker had access to the storage building. The keys were kept in the vehicles inside the storage building, which isn't the safest, but the entire property was fenced and the road leading to the property was blocked by an iron gate, which was locked with a chain and padlock.
Okay.
And you couldn't see, it was half a mile from the gate, so it wasn't visible from the roadway, so you couldn't see it. So you wouldn't really know about it unless you knew the family.
Unless you knew about it, yeah.
Right. So it's not like someone walking by could be like, oh, let me go steal those cars.
Yeah.
So despite the storage building being non-visible from the road, one of the property owners verified that on November 18th, 1999, the Bronco was locked inside the storage building and the gate to the property was locked. He explained that on Sunday preceding November 18th, he and his son went to the Benton County property to practice target shooting. He got about halfway home when he realized that he had left the guns in the Bronco. The 3 guns left inside the Bronco were a 9mm pistol, okay, I don't know how to say these, so don't at me, but a .22 Weatherby long rifle and a .410 chrome shotgun. Because the Bronco was locked, he decided to wait until the following week to retrieve the guns. He figured that they were safe and sound in the Bronco, and he must have had other guns to use for the target shooting because that's why he didn't have to like turn back and get the guns.
Yeah.
Within the next day or so, the caretaker contacted the property owner's father and asked whether he had taken the Bronco. The father responded that he had not, and upon learning that the Bronco was missing, his son reported the vehicle as stolen to police. He subsequently discovered that a window in the storage building had been broken and the gate pulled off its hinges.
Jeez.
Yeah. The Bronco was later discovered in Midtown Memphis. However, the 3 guns were missing. Now back to Leonard. The year that this is all going down, so 1999, Leonard's niece, Virginia Davis, lived in Midtown Memphis, Tennessee. She had not seen her Uncle Leonard for approximately 6 years before he just randomly arrived at her house in late November of 99. It was either later that day on the 18th or 19th, I couldn't find the exact date, but Leonard was driving a Ford Bronco, and he had asked Virginia if she had a car, and she replied she didn't. He also inquired whether her father still lived in Texas, indicating that he might visit him. Leonard's impromptu visit with his niece lasted for approximately 45 minutes before leaving at 5 p.m.
That's so weird.
Yeah. At 7 p.m. that evening, Mississippi law enforcement officers arrived at Virginia's residence and asked that she contact them if she again saw Leonard. We know for a fact that his ex, Jesse, called police and reported him stealing her car. And then he actually returned to Virginia's house 2 days later, his niece's house, but she refused to allow him inside. She then contacted police as instructed.
Wow.
So police are on his tail, like seeing where he's going and what he's doing. It's now November 21st, 1999, or 5 days since Leonard's carjacking spree started at his ex's house. The stolen 1989 Ford Bronco was discovered by Memphis police on the same block as his niece Virginia's residence. So first he stole the Mercedes, took that to the big area of land, then stole the Bronco, and now he left the Bronco at his niece's house.
And it seems like he wanted to drop it off because he asked his niece if she had a car.
Exactly. So now let's rewind a few months. August of 1999. A 24-year-old woman named Hillary Johnson, who was originally from Chicago, received a teaching fellowship in the philosophy department at the University of Memphis. Upon arriving in Memphis, Hillary purchased a white Hyundai for $1,350. Now let's fast forward back to November of 1999, November 19th to be exact. Hillary informed her mother that she planned to drive home to Chicago for Thanksgiving holiday. Hillary's mother attempted to telephone her daughter but was not able to reach her. A fellow graduate student had planned to meet Hillary that morning and discuss their grading methods, but again, Hillary never showed and never contacted her. Then later that day, Hillary's boyfriend called her mother to inform her that he had been unable to contact Hillary. She told Hillary's boyfriend to let her know if he still hadn't heard from Hillary later that day. At 10:30 p.m. that evening, he called Hillary's mother again and told her that he still hadn't heard from her.
That's scary.
It's literally a mother's worst nightmare. Yeah. But so at this point, she's very concerned. So her mom calls the police, and she also contacted Hillary's landlords and asked if they would allow the police to enter her apartment, which they did, so thank goodness. In addition to Hillary's family and the police, her friends began looking for her. On November 22nd, 1999, Memphis police received a missing persons report from Hillary's mother. She gave the officer Hillary's address, and police were sent to Hillary's apartment to investigate. As a result of the officer's investigation, police decided to issue a missing persons broadcast on Hillary. On November 29th, Hillary's vehicle was finally located in Tippah County, Mississippi, which is it's not very far at all from where she went missing.
Yeah.
When officers found Hillary's car, they described it as being in a very rural area, wooded area, pine trees, oak trees. There was also a house that might have been a hunting cabin at one time, or some sort of old house on the property.
Yeah, so off the beaten path.
Exactly. So they're like, how did this car get there? Police were also puzzled because Hillary was still nowhere to be found. There wasn't any evidence of blood in Hillary's car either. A search of the cabin, like that little thing that they found, revealed open cans of food in the kitchen, a lady's jacket in the living room, and what appeared to be blood on some bed sheets. Those stains, though, turned out to be deer blood and paint. So that was, I don't want to say a letdown to police, but it led them to a dead end.
Yeah.
During the search of the cabin and the surrounding area, police in Tippah County learned that Jessie Cochran, who had the woman who lived in the adjoining town and was the ex, her residence was approximately 15 miles from the location of Hillary's vehicle if traveling by road. But again, it was just super close if you were to just cut through the woods. What was it through the...
As the crow flies.
Yeah, exactly. Police in Mississippi ended up receiving permission from their superiors in the Hardin County, Tennessee Sheriff's Department to enter the state of Tennessee because that's where it all started. And the states would need to work together.
States working together.
I know, right? A Hardin County Sheriff's deputy accompanied Lieutenant Marler to Jessie's home. Police traveled from the abandoned cabin to Jessie's home, and on the way there, they found a partially filled bottle of Diet Coke and a plastic shopping bag in the woods. And mind you, this is not like off a road. This is like they are walking through the woods, getting between the two locations. So they had left, the police who found this had left their vehicles parked on the main road, and good thing they did because they ended up finding that, that random stuff.
Yeah.
As one of the officers on the scene, Lieutenant Marler, reached the front porch, one officer looked through a window and observed a gentleman, later identified as Leonard, sitting there watching TV. And there was a deep freeze directly in front of him, and the TV was kind of to his left.
What's a deep freeze?
It's a massive freezer.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, like, is it one of those that has, like, the lid that goes up?
Exactly.
Oh.
And on the
that
deep
on
freeze,
TV shows they always hide bodies in?
Exactly.
That kind of thing?
Yeah. And on the deep freeze was a 9mm pistol. And remember, Jessie is staying with her sister. So it was really hard to find like certain details in this case. But what I'm thinking is that Leonard must have been in her house while she was gone. I don't know. But
oh, yeah. Ugh.
Yeah. I mean, that's what it has to be because it said that they walked to Jessie's house. That was one detail where I was like, oh, why couldn't you put more?
Yeah.
But it was from the police, like the court hearings. When Leonard looked up, Lieutenant Marler pointed his weapon at him and ordered him to freeze. Leonard moved towards his gun, but Lieutenant Marler cocked his weapon and told Leonard that he would shoot. Eventually, Leonard raised his hands and placed them behind his head. Lieutenant Marler and the other officers then entered the residence. However, Leonard refused to comply with their instructions and was forced to the floor. Lieutenant Marler searched Leonard and discovered the .22 caliber pistol and a fillet knife on him. Ellie, stop.
She's keeping her head down and growling. It's the lazy guard dog.
Leonard was arrested, advised of his constitutional rights, and upon being questioned by police, he admitted to pretty much everything. He confirmed what police had suspected, that days earlier, he entered his ex-girlfriend Jessie's residence through a window and had taken her Mercedes, and then he evaded police and hid in the woods for 2 days. Then, Ellie, stop. Then he came upon the storage building in the woods where he discovered the Ford Bronco. After taking the Bronco, he traveled to Texas, stopping to see his niece in Virginia and Memphis. After that, he returned to Memphis where he abandoned the Bronco near Virginia's residence. Leonard stated that after Virginia informed him that the law was looking for him, he took off running. Shortly thereafter, he encountered a girl in a white Honda at a stop sign. And police would discover that that girl was Hillary. Leonard said that he jumped in the car, brought her on 64 Highway, put her out between the last subdivision and the store. Leonard claimed that although he had 2 guns in his boots, which were stolen, he did not use the weapons during the carjacking. Which, why would you have taken them if you weren't planning on using them? So Leonard is recounting these stories to detectives, and he conveniently says that he didn't use those weapons that he had stolen. So instead, Leonard said that when he first jumped into the car, the girl asked him not to hurt her. Leonard replied, "I ain't gonna hurt you, lady. All I want to do is get away." Wow, what a thoughtful gentleman.
Yeah, so sweet.
So Leonard stated that prior to putting her out, he took some of Hillary's credit cards. He then drove through Alabama to Florida and then back to Alabama, arriving at the ex-girlfriend's residence in Tennessee 4 days later. So he was right back where he started.
Mm-hmm.
Leonard was questioned by police some more, and during the interview, they asked him, what should we tell Hillary's parents? Because after all, Leonard was the last person to see her alive.
Mm-hmm.
Leonard responded with, tell them I'm not the one that hurt her. Well, if she's hurt. Like, I feel like I say this every episode, but how dumb are you?
Yeah. Yeah.
By December 3rd, 1999, the FBI became involved in the investigation upon discovering that the offenses had crossed state lines and that Hillary's credit card had been used in Alabama, Georgia, and Florida after she was reported missing.
Oh, interesting. That's what gets the FBI involved.
I know, right?
I mean, I guess it makes sense because, like, crossing state lines, you don't have the specific state's police anymore.
Exactly.
And then maybe with the money thing that adds into it.
Mm-hmm. Because it's like a federal thing since, one state, it's hard for one state to claim it.
Yeah.
But at this point of the story, the FBI gets involved, even though everything started in Tennessee and that was like the main area.
Okay.
Yeah. But an FBI agent met with Leonard and Leonard's lawyer in jail, and the agent took some photographs of Hillary from an envelope and laid them on the picnic table, remarking that she was such a pretty child and it's just a shame that we can't find her. Young ignored the photographs and returned to his cell, like very upset. Shortly thereafter, he returned to the table, tapping the FBI agent on the chest and said, basically, I'm fixing to give you something. He asked for a pen, and on the back of the envelope, he drew a little area which looked like an S-curve, and then a round area. And then he started describing a field that was 10 or 15 acres of 4-inch winter wheat crop that had been planted, and there was a brush pile, and right by the brush pile was a little gravel road off the paved road. And then he said that there would have been a cropping of trees to your left, and then there would be a large agricultural fuel tank past the trees that was silver colored but rusting, and that next to that, under 2 pieces of tin, you would find what you're looking for. So the agent was like, alrighty then, and passed that along. And given Leonard's clear and seamless description, the officers were completely unable to locate the area that he described. So later that evening, after an exhaustive attempt by Leonard to explain where Hillary's body was located, they were like, enough is enough. They, as in the officers, they were like, we're just going to take you with us and we are going to have you show us exactly what you're talking about. Mm-hmm. So with Leonard directing him, this is Sheriff East's account. Drove from Oxford to Olive Branch to up number 7, up into Tennessee, crossed 72, and on up in Tennessee. We went straight up 7, crossed 72 highway, and kept going. We turned up there to the left like we was going to Somerville. We was in Marshall County. We left Lafayette and went to Marshall, and then we went to Fayette County, Tennessee, I think. Literally, these are the police notes.
That is so confusing.
Literally the worst directions I have ever read while researching cases.
Oh my goodness.
Sheriff East stated that he had no earthly idea where he was.
Yeah, obviously.
In case you couldn't tell.
I have no idea where
I
you are
don't know
either.
It began to rain and was very dark, and Sheriff East explained that he just kept driving around and missing a road, and it was just really hard to find anything. Finally, Leonard instructed Sheriff East to drive real slow. At this point, I was freaked out, but after taking a little turn, Leonard instructed Sheriff East to drive off the blacktop onto a field. Leonard then stated, right out there to the left under a piece of tin. That's where she is. So here they were, approximately 2.5 hours after leaving the Lafayette County Jail. The officers discovered Hillary's body beside the piece of tin as described by Leonard.
Oh.
Yeah. Darren Goods, a Memphis police officer assigned to the FBI Safe Streets Task Force, was assigned to the investigation into the disappearance of Hillary. Officer Goods and his partner, Chad Golden, were alerted that Hillary's vehicle had been located in Mississippi. The officers went to Mississippi to escort the vehicle to Tennessee. On December 4th, 1999, Sergeant Blum returned to Lafayette County Jail to interview Leonard. During this interview, Leonard decided to change his account of what happened that day that he crossed paths with Hillary. He stated that he jumped into the car with her and, quote, told her I needed a way to get out of town and took her in her car out of town. I dumped her off out there in Shelby County and I hid her body under some tin, end quote. The way he describes it is just so heartless.
Yeah.
And
it's like, I went to the store today and I got this.
Yeah,
like,
the way he describes the instructions and just everything, I'm just like, I mean, it's good that he admitted it and he had some sort of feeling there to admit like where he put her, maybe.
Or it's just he knew he was caught.
Yeah,
you
that's
know?
very true. That's a good point.
But at least he did, because there are some killers who, like, they
never
like
tell.
to keep it to themselves
Yeah.
because they're like, this is a little thing that I will not give you and you won't get it.
Exactly.
Which is horrible.
Yeah. But it seems like when detectives were like talking about the girl and her family, and he was like, fine, I'll take you to the body. Like, he had some sort of soul, but then just him describing like this part, just, it's just so heartless. And Leonard admitted that he had 2 weapons on his person, but stated that they were concealed in his boots. He said that he told the girl that he was not going to hurt her and to not fight or resist. The girl told Leonard that she was from Chicago and asked where he was from. Again, just like Jesse, trying to de-escalate the situation for a freaking crazy person.
And it's also like you're trying to show the person that you're a human.
Exactly.
You know, like, I'm a person, I have a life. Like, I'm not just like a piece of, I'm not just something you can throw away. Like, I'm a person, I have a life. This is who I am. Hi, who are you? You know?
And that's actually common, like, in hostage situations where they will talk to them like a person, or even if you're like in there with a hostage, if you just talk to them and be like, I get why you're mad, like, I get what, and try to like be human with them. It's so twisted because you're so scared. But it's like a survival tactic. So Leonard admitted that he was responsible for Hillary's death, but claimed that he was unable to recall how her death occurred. He stated that, I know. He stated that at some point, Hillary pulled a knife from behind the seat and he had to disarm her. So this is shifting to a self-defense thing.
Oh my God.
Yeah. During the altercation, Hillary, quote, got cut. He makes it sound like it's a little paper cut, but we'll see what the truth is soon. Leonard stated that he dragged Hillary 20 yards, during which time Hillary was still moving, so she was still alive. Leonard claimed that as he placed Hillary under the piece of tin, he, quote, had to move her and her pants slid down to her knees. Yeah.
Oh my God.
Leonard drove away in Hillary's car. At 2 a.m. on December 4th, 1999, Hillary's mother received a telephone call from the Midwest Bureau of the FBI.
Ugh.
Hillary's mother learned that her daughter's body had been discovered. 2 days later, Hillary's mother attended a memorial service for her daughter at the University of Memphis. Dr. O.C. Smith, the Shelby County medical examiner, performed an autopsy on Hillary's body. Dr. Smith initially responded to the location where the body was discovered, and he recalled that Hillary was lying on her back and she was wearing a brown sweater, had green cargo-type trousers, and that there had been some muddy soiling on her skin. Afterwards, Hillary's body was taken to the Forensic Center for further investigation, and it was found that there were tons of bruises all over her. Bruises on the right side of her neck, along the line of her jaw, on her chin, on the back of her thigh, like literally everywhere. So there were also indications of a stab wound in the clothing, upper body clothing, the brown sweater at the left back just below the neckline, and that was adjacent to a stab wound found in the same position on her upper left back. So she had been stabbed multiple times in the back on top of the bruises that they found. And they actually stated that the bruising on Hillary occurred less than 2 hours prior to her death. So self-defense my ass.
Yeah.
You don't stab someone in the back in self-defense.
And also, regardless, you jumped in her car.
Exactly.
No matter what your argument is, you can't claim self-defense.
Exactly.
You got in her car.
You're asking to get hurt if you're going to do that.
Yes. Like, her self-defense 100%.
Yeah.
You got in her car.
Yeah.
Your self-defense claim goes out the window.
Exactly. It's just so messed up.
Like, if someone comes into my house and I hurt them, you can't claim self-defense. You're in my house.
Exactly. Yeah, so she ended up dying because of the stab wounds in her back.
Dang.
And like I said, he was claiming self-defense, but that was quickly, completely obliterated.
Good.
Obliterated. Sorry. During the hearing, people in Hillary's lives were given the opportunity to share victim impact statements. One person who spoke was Dr. Sundstrom. Hillary was a teaching assistant to Dr. Sundstrom at University of Memphis, and he testified at the hearing that many students were unable to finish the semester and the entire philosophy department ground to a halt following Hillary's murder.
Aww.
I know. It had a tremendous impact on the undergraduate students that she mentored, her associate graduate students, and the faculty. One student even dropped out.
Dang.
Hillary's mother also testified that the entire family continued to suffer as a result of her daughter's murder. She said that Hillary's brother had difficulty in school and Hillary's father had been unable to continue in his endeavors to start a new business.
Aww.
Her mom was in graduate school at the time of the trial, but she had been unable to complete certain courses and was very unable to focus. Prior to Hillary's disappearance, she had fought with her best friend, and her friend was distraught because she never had the chance to make amends.
Oh.
Isn't that so hard?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's rough.
So I think those victim impact statements were really important because it could be the difference between sending him away for like 40 years or, 50, 60. Mm-hmm. There is actually a huge part of the story that I left out.
Mm-hmm.
So Leonard randomly showed up to his ex's house on November 16th, right? Well, his erratic behavior actually didn't begin on November 16th.
Okay.
It began the day before, on November 15th, 1999. Mm-hmm. Leonard showed up to a man named James Allen Nault's home in Oxford, Mississippi. James testified that on November 15th, he saw Leonard try to kidnap his wife. Leonard had just shown up to the house, and James approached Leonard, because he's trying to kidnap his wife.
Yeah.
And Leonard pointed a shotgun at him. Yeah.
Did he get the wife?
So James told Leonard to take him instead of the wife, and Leonard agreed. Yeah.
What a nice man.
I know. They got into James's car with James driving and Leonard keeping the gun pointed at him. While they drove, Leonard threatened to kill several people that he and James knew. So, backstory, Leonard and James knew each other. From what I could tell, it was some sort of like family friend situation.
Oh.
Not close at all, like distant.
Mm-hmm.
I had a really hard time finding any details about this. This is literally all from like the case. It's crazy how little there was. But in the court records, it said that they did know each other. But at Leonard's direction, James drove them down a gravel road. Leonard got out and walked off into the woods. Police began looking for James after hearing about the kidnapping. James was okay, and he was able to get away after Leonard walked into the woods.
Oh, good.
Thank God.
He was in a very dangerous position, but I feel like it would have been a lot worse if, Leonard had actually taken James's wife.
Yeah.
I feel like James's wife might not have,
definitely
come out of it.
But it wasn't 100% okay after that because... Well, investigators interviewed James, and James told them to check on William Bramlett, who was one of the people that Leonard had threatened while talking to James. He came to James, talking all big about how he was mad at these people. So police showed up at William's house and warned him about Leonard, who was still on the run.
Oh, that'd be so scary.
Yeah. Police kept looking for Leonard, but they couldn't find him anywhere. The next morning, on November 16th, 1999, William was reported missing and his car was not at home. Police searched for William in his home, but they couldn't find him. But get this, the next day, on November 17th, a family member found William's body in his home after police had searched the home. His body was there the whole time.
Yeah, how did they search?
It clearly wasn't a very thorough search.
Doesn't seem like it.
Yes, literally while... Well, I'll get to that in a second. He had been shot, and William's truck was found right by Jesse Cochran's home, and that leads us to where I started the story. Mm-hmm. The state was actually able to share how Leonard was dangerous to society due to his lengthy past criminal history, and on June 11th, 1974, he had actually been convicted of rape, and he pled guilty to robbery with a deadly weapon. So it's crazy that he was, allowed to walk free.
Yeah. And so he went to his girlfriend or ex-girlfriend's house just because he was in the area and he needed a new car.
Yeah, he needed to get a new car.
He was trying to ask why
he was trying to get away, and he was just trying to erase his tracks from this initial murder. I don't know why he wanted to kill this person. I don't know what was going on, but he was on I think he was on just a spree of madness.
Yeah.
In 2002, a jury sentenced him to death for the premeditated murder of Hillary because they determined for some reason, somehow, it was premeditated.
Yeah.
It only took them 15 minutes to come to that decision.
Wow.
Yeah. But on October 8th, 2019, Leonard was given a second
2019?
chance. Yes. Because I was sentenced to death, so he's probably dead by now because I was 20 years ago.
Yeah.
No, on October 8th, 2019, he was given a second chance at life after accepting an offer of life without parole His death sentence was tossed.
So, okay, so no death sentence, but he's still life in jail.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was
so he'll
gonna
never
say,
get
if
out.
you came out of jail, I'd have some things to
Hell
say.
no. He's 76 now. He will spend the rest of his life in jail.
Good.
Hillary's family didn't want to fight it because it was just too much.
And because then you have to relive it every single
exactly.
time.
And then it's like, what if it doesn't go right? Like,
yeah.
At least this way he's still in jail.
Yes, he's away from the public.
Exactly.
They have, some form of closure.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so that is the insane, 7-day spree of mayhem.
Jeez.
Yeah.
And so we don't know what really started the whole thing, why he wanted to kill these people?
So I think it started with William. First, I don't know. I could not find details of why, but he wanted to kill William. And I think he was trying to get to William. So he was taking the car from James to get to William to kill him. And then he was on the run.
I wish we knew why.
I know. I looked at articles. I looked at all sorts of stuff.
That's wild that it wasn't. Because, usually a lot of times, you get a good amount of information. And especially if they were able to interview him at points, you would think that would be something that would come up.
Yeah. And it was crazy, too, because, a lot of articles that I read about it didn't even mention the second murder. Or I guess technically the first murder of William. It was so hard to find information. I get that Hillary is, a college student. And, it was a little classist because it didn't give, nearly as much attention to William, who his whole situation started the whole thing.
Yeah.
So that was really interesting. But yeah.
Dang.
If you look up articles about this case, it's mainly just about Hillary.
Wow. Mm-hmm. That was wild.
Thanks.
And what was the guy's full name?
His name was Leonard Young.
Huh. Yeah. It's so weird. We'll cover cases, and I'm like, how have I not heard of this before?
I know. And it's not like it was so long ago. It was in our lifetime.
Yeah, exactly.
And it was an insane thing.
And new stuff happened in 2019.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You would think that we would have seen news about it or seen an article about it.
Right.
With Robert Durst, we saw when he was arrested, and we saw when he died recently. We see those things. So it's weird that for something that's as big as this, that's there was all that information on it that we didn't see any updates about it.
I know. It's crazy. But yeah, so he's just sitting in jail. He'll never get out. I know, thank goodness.
Okay, I have this weird thing. I feel like I don't like final meals because I feel like the only people who get final meals are those who are on death row because they did something so bad that they have to be on death row. So why do they get to enjoy a final meal when those people who also did really bad things, but not the worst thing ever, don't get a final meal?
I know.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I just don't get it.
Those are majorly being phased out.
Good.
Yeah, they're not as much of a thing anymore.
Because I don't think you should deserve a final meal. You're in prison. You shouldn't get this, all the food that you want because you committed a murder.
I know, and I'm sorry,
crime.
but if you killed people and children and did horrible things, whatever you did, I don't want my tax money going to you getting a steak dinner.
Exactly.
No.
And then I heard recently on some podcast I was listening to, they limited it to $25 recently because one guy ordered a ton of food, a ton of food and didn't eat any of it, on purpose. Ugh. To prove a point, I guess. And so they limited it to $25, and then I guess they're slowly backing it down.
Yeah, from what I've heard, it's really not offered as many places anymore.
I feel like your last meal should be whatever the cafeteria was serving that day.
I agree.
Because you did something horrible, you shouldn't get a steak dinner.
Yeah, and if you did something so bad to where you're getting the death penalty, you don't need that.
Exactly.
It's not easy to get the death penalty. Usually people will just do lesser things because it's so hard to get the death penalty approved. So you have to do something really bad to get that.
No, I 100% agree.
So, yeah.
It is interesting hearing what people's last meals were, but
yeah, it is.
I would rather not know because you don't get it.
Yeah, exactly. Not from here, not from there.
No.
Anywhere.
You sounded like Dr. Seuss.
I know, I felt like it.
He was born on my birthday.
Really?
Yeah, we used to have Read Across America Day on my birthday, and literally we would come to school in PJs and we would just read all day.
Wow.
It was amazing because I loved to read.
Yeah.
And so it was the best thing ever.
I love it.
All right. Well, thank you so much for listening to us this week. Like we keep saying, we do have really exciting things in the works. It takes a lot more work than you would think.
Yeah.
So we're slowly getting through it. We're slowly making it work. But once we have all the exciting information, we'll share it with you guys.
Yes, and please make sure to give us a 5-star rating on Spotify.
Please.
It's so quick.
It takes 5 seconds.
Yeah, all you do is just click the button that has all the stars next to it.
Click 5.
Yes, and that's it. And same, Apple Podcast takes a couple more minutes, but it's easy too if you want to review us there.
And we would love it.
Yes, make sure to follow us on Facebook and Instagram at A Scary State Podcast. Give us some likes and message us your stories.
Please, we want to do another listeners episode, and we have a couple stories right now. We definitely need more to do a full episode, so please send us any paranormal encounters you had, any weird true crime brushes you've had, just anything you guys have had. We'd love to hear.
We'd love to hear it. All right, guys. Well, thank you so much for listening. Stay scary.
Stay safe.